Hi there, I'm Andrew,
And I'm Patrick.
and this is going to be our episode 0 for Alleyway Conversations.
Yeah, so this is something we've been thinking about for a while, right?
Oh, I'd say a little over 10 years.
Yeah, something like. I remember it was so far back, my original idea was to get a demo tape and send it out to radio stations so that we could have like a morning show or something.
Oh, yeah.
So-
Well, originally it all started because we would just have these amazing conversations in an old, what would you call that? An old 60s pickup truck.
Yeah,
We
I
call-
called it the Foxworthy Mobile.
Because it was hand painted with a roller,
Yeah.
like a paint roller, not spray paint.
Oh,
we
yeah.
couldn't go that fancy.
Like, I remember the fateful day you wanted to trade it in. I don't remember how much the trade-in value was. It was not high.
No.
But I remember joking with the dealer. And I was like, come on, man, it's got its own custom paint job. That does not appreciate the value of this truck.
Hey, it came with John Deere floor mats, and
They
that
were
was
probably
important.
more expensive than the truck itself.
You're not right. Hey, it also came with a gun rack in the back.
Yeah, no, we got Red Brighter ones just so we could have something back there.
Oh man. Well, anyway, as you can tell, we're just a couple of good old boys. We're wanting to make a podcast.
Never
because-
meaning no harm.
Yes, I love Dukes of Hazzard.
Yeah.
But I always thought that it was amazing how so many of these so-called experts out there knew what a average person's opinion was and was so horribly and totally wrong.
Yeah, I'm kind of tired of like every single time anyone like lower class is represented. Like we actually just watched Shameless. It was good because it actually does portray like really, really not well off people really well.
True, but how many times, they always talk about how, we needed to interview somebody about the car crash, and they always get the dumbest person I have ever heard, and they're like, yeah, there was this white vehicle, and they ran into a red vehicle, and they just have the worst accent. I'm like, come on, did they pull this person out of a stereotypical lineup of just dumb
Yeah.
people they can find? Or are the people on the news
Like-
the only one who can sound sophisticated? Is that a thing?
Yeah, it's like you're just sitting there hearing the headline and you're like, you know what? I want to know what Larry the Cable Guy thinks of this.
Nobody should need to know that. Not knocking Larry the Cable Guy. He is quite hilarious. I loved him in his stand-up growing up,
Yeah.
through high school and stuff. I watched The Health Inspector. We won't
Wow.
go into that. Yeah, it wasn't a great
I'm
movie.
sorry.
It's good.
Are you okay?
I needed counseling.
I can understand.
But, in all, just, I want the average person to have a voice, and I think we're a good representation of that. We live in the middle of the country.
Yeah.
We've worked factory jobs. You've been a dishwasher. You've been in a band.
Yeah, I've done a lot with my life. And you would think in a very short time, no, I'm actually getting up there in years, so.
And I've worked at, different factories. I've worked in the medical field. I've
Yeah,
done
you,
fast food.
You actually went to college for, like, auto repair or something, right?
That's right. And I managed to graduate in 2010, right in the middle of the whole automotive industry just crash.
Yeah.
Couldn't have picked a better time to graduate with a degree that was basically worthless at the time.
Yeah, like, my grandpa was the last generation, but we're the screwed generation.
Yeah.
We're not lost, we're just having a really rough time every day.
Well, I mean, look at like they were doing on Shameless. There is like 8 or 9 kids living in a 3-bedroom house. I get that.
Yeah.
You kind of, and I mean, at least they have the excuse of all being related. How many people are still living with their parents or are living, 5, 6 roommates in a small house because that's what you have to do to survive?
Oh yeah, man. Like, that is the unfortunate fact of the matter. Everyone likes to make fun of millennials, but at the same time, like, we just got dealt a really bad hand. Like, we popped out of high school and, the army was taking in whoever they could because that whole thing in Iraq. And, you know, then there was a huge recession, and then another one, and it's been rough. It's been a rough 30 years.
Yeah, man, the '90s were awesome, weren't they? If only
Yeah,
I had grown up during them.
That's probably why I like grunge as much as I do, just because, God, it was a simpler time when this was actually desperate. Nowadays, like, grunge musicians would be pretty well off, I would think.
Which is sad, because that goes entirely in the face of what they were trying to represent back then.
Yeah, but they really should have, like, doubled down. You can get grosser. It's just not going to stand the test of time, because America is going to get grosser.
This is true. So, as you can see, we're wanting to do just an average person makes an average podcast for the average people and stick it to the experts. Remember when the experts said that Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool was going to be a terrible movie and nobody wanted to watch it? Do you remember how they went?
Well, here's the thing about that I think people don't really appreciate, and I can say this being an artist, is that it means a lot more and it'll get a better product out if you do it with some sort of passion, some sort of love. And Ryan Reynolds is a huge Deadpool fan.
Oh, yeah.
So,
But the fact that the executives looked at this, got another panel of people who were probably... How can they judge what an average person is when they've either never been one or haven't been one for so long they don't remember what it's like to be an average American, where you don't know where your next meal's coming from, where you don't know if you have enough gas to make it to work the next day.
Yeah, have you seen this, like, there's this group of photos that's coming around. It was, like, a really huge deal in 2020. But it's like Quentin Tarantino, legendary director, amazing man, don't get me wrong. But he is wandering through, like, a middle-class average house, and he is lost. Like, you can see in his eyes, he has no idea what's going on.
Well, I saw the one where, if I remember correctly, it was Hillary Clinton doing the same. She was going through an average, low-income apartment, and she looks at the entire house and goes, "Where's the rest of it?"
Yeah.
I'm sorry, not all of us could afford a 30-bedroom mansion, or just 30 rooms in general. I mean, 30 bedrooms, what are you doing, renting a hotel? I thought her and Trump didn't get along.
Please do not get more political than that.
I
beg you.
Don't worry, I'm not a political person. I hate all government equally. They're all worthless.
Well, I mean...
They're also experts. Didn't you know?
Yeah, clearly. I don't know, like, back in the day, during, like, the Bush administration, I was a pretty heavy anarchist. Nowadays, I still don't like these people, but at the same time...
But now you're paying taxes and everything else, and now you truly understand why you didn't like them, instead of just, go against the machine!
Well, yeah, there is that, definitely, and taxes have gotten pretty crazy lately, but at the same time, I... kind of gave up on the revolution. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I just don't have the energy or time or patience to get angry about that anymore, you know what I mean?
Well, that is the problem. I mean, how do you fix a broken system? Usually, if it's too broken, you just scrap the whole thing and you start again. You know, if my car's engine blew a gasket, I'm not gonna just go in there and fix the gasket. You gotta fix the block. You gotta fit new piston rings. You change the oil. You can't just fix one thing and expect everything else that it affected to not work in synchronization with it.
Yeah. Well, and we were talking about that, like, the other day. I say this without any real interest or hope or anything, but the only way I see this system working is if we just start a revolution and start from what's left. And maybe that's just because I was an anarchist back in the day, and I still adhere to those values, I just don't care enough to actually enforce them.
That is the one nice thing about working in factories and doing blue-collar work like we did. You just don't have the energy anymore. You know, I remember reading a documentary about school system and about how it's so rigid and it's an old fallback system from like the 1930s and 40s where factory owners were the one who actually made the school system what it is, because they wanted to train people that, you can only leave when the bell happens. You have very tight schedules to do things. You have very nice things, because they were training them to be a factory. But then again, it was after World War II, and so many factories were opening up in America, just all over the place.
Yeah, it's like Billy Bragg said, what they teach you in school is to be a good worker.
Yeah. Well, and you can't expect people to gain a whole lot of knowledge in school like that. Like they said, in school they teach you how to take tests and how to memorize facts, but they don't teach you how to apply the knowledge you've learned into everyday life. They don't teach you critical thinking skills, which I always found amazing, because my mom taught me critical thinking. My grandma taught me critical. They were librarians, and my mom graduated with a master's degree in teaching.
Wow, she does not seem the type, but
yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
But, they're the ones who taught me that.
I love you, Sarah, by the way.
And it always surprised me how, whenever a management job opened up at work, or in every university I've looked into, there's always a critical thinking course. And every time I breeze right through it, and they're like, wow, how did you learn how to critical think and all this stuff? I'm like, shouldn't they teach you that?
Well,
No, universities teach you that, because if you're smart enough to get into university, then the factories don't want you to do critical thinking.
Well,
they want you to follow orders, and they want you to know just enough to get the job done.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's why it's imperative that people have some kind of pilgrimage after they leave school. Like, you can't just, go to a factory and have your shit in order. You have to, go out and see the world. You gotta join a band, join the army, do something that can give you actual real-world experience.
I went to Job Corps not long after I got out of high school, and for those of you who don't know
that probably taught you a lot.
Yeah, it did. For those of you who don't know what that is, Job Corps is a federal government-funded trade school. And there's at least a dozen of them in the country. They're all over. They teach all sorts of things.
It's reasonably prestigious, isn't it? I mean, not like Ivy League good, but it'll look real nice on a resume good.
They do real world applications for what we did. Our buddy AJ, he went there at the same time I did, and he got a degree in A+ in Internet Technology Studies, and A+ was one of the gold standards for computer technology. I went in for auto body. Well, that's not what I went in for originally. I knew I wanted to be in mechanics, and then when I went there, they're like, okay, which degree in mechanic do you want? I'm like, they didn't tell me I would get this far.
Yeah,
there's multiple things to learn.
Degrees, yeah.
Yeah, and they're like, yeah, you can learn auto body, transmission repair, brake. Yeah, did you know brakes are so complicated? They have their own class just for brakes.
Huh.
Now, electrical, I understand, because they say there's 20 to 30 miles of electrical wire in cars nowadays. Yeah, I don't know how to read an electrical diagram, and I stayed far away from that class. It looked confusing.
Oh, yeah. I tried to study a little bit on computers because I thought computers were going to be the future.
They are.
Well, yes, but a different kind of computer than I was thinking.
You were thinking desktops and laptops.
Yeah, mostly. That was the big thing. Razor phones were the big deal.
God, I loved Razor phones.
Well, they're great, don't get me wrong, but they're not really as advanced as, I was thinking that'd be as good as, phones would ever get. And now it can pretty much replace a desktop or whatever, so.
Just about. Well, they say the Game Boy Color is more powerful than the computer we sent Neil Armstrong to the moon with.
Oh, yeah. Actually, kind of reminds me. So Cleopatra was actually living through a time that's closer to the opening of the first Taco Bell than she was to the beginning of the pyramids.
Yeah.
Isn't that a trip?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You think about it, because if I remember, she was courted by, I believe it was Mark Antony.
Mm-hmm.
And you think about that, that's still ancient Rome. That's still 1,500 to 2,000 years ago. And
something
yet,
like.
The pyramids were built around, the Great Pyramids were built around, what, 3,500 BC?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you don't really realize that when you're reading a history book. You just like, this happened, and regardless of like what the dates are, it still kind of sounds like it was 5 minutes ago because it was 5 minutes ago that you found out about that last thing.
And yeah, well, with how school teaches history, usually I think most American history classes that start from, first grade until you start getting into high school and learning more broad history, it's, all right, 1492, Christopher Columbus discovered America. Which he didn't, by the way.
Yeah, we know better now, but back in the day, that was kind of a big deal.
Yeah. He didn't even discover mainland America. He landed off in Cuba, and I think he hit Mexico and South America.
Well, to be fair, the first, sorry, we're still trying to figure out this whole recording thing.
But that's okay, because this is our first episode, and we're going to enjoy it.
Yeah, naturally.
And you guys are going to be along for the ride as we learn.
Yeah. But yeah, to be fair, the very first place in North America that was discovered by Europeans was supposedly Greenland, or maybe Iceland.
Except neither one of those are a part of North America, I don't believe.
Well, they're islands, but it's kind of iffy on that note, whether or not they're European or American, because they're kind of right in the middle.
Right. Well, we know for a fact, because we've actually found evidence, that Vikings landed around Nova Scotia in Canada, and actually, I think, if I remember correctly, they've found evidence of Vikings all the way down into, I want to say, Maine. In those places, they've actually found rocks carved with Viking symbols that date back to, I want to say, around 900 AD, 5 to 600 years before Columbus was even a gleam in his daddy's eye.
Oh, yeah. Like, this was in... And it kind of feels like, oh yeah, the Viking Age that happened around the time of the Dark Ages, and then the Renaissance came, and then, Christopher Columbus discovered America. See, and you think that, but it really is like hundreds of years apart.
Well, like, did you know that around the time that the Vikings started their crusades in North and Eastern Europe was actually around the time of Charlemagne?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I did not know that.
Yeah.
I watched a documentary on the History Channel. Love the History Channel, by the way. When the History Channel had great documentaries, and now they have Finding Bigfoot and Ancient Aliens. Because remember, everybody...
Ice road truckers, man. That's a big part of history.
Right. Remember, everybody, if something weird happens, it wasn't the government, it's aliens.
Yeah, that's what George Lucas says.
I won't argue with George Lucas, except for about the prequels.
No, George Lucas.
Oh, Lucas. You can understand my confusion. That sounded very... George Lucas, Star Wars. You can see why I would be thinking aliens.
Yeah, no, he's that one professor on Ancient Aliens with the afro that's just like, everything was aliens.
Is he the one that you always see the memes of with the hair straight up?
That's
aliens. It. Speaking of George Lucas, I'm going to have something a little controversial. I actually liked The Phantom Menace.
I gotta admit, it's kind of like when Metallica, former musician, I'm gonna make a lot of musical analogies. It's sort of like when Metallica made the Black Album, and pretty much everyone was like, this has got to be the worst album they've ever made.
See, and
then they made Saint Anger, and everyone's like, oh my god, it got so much worse!
Oh my... So that's why everybody says the Black Album is when Metallica really hit a turning point. And that turning point was down.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things. Metallica, everybody agrees that Metallica either changed or got way worse after the Black Album. And I think it happened during the Black Album, personally. But that's not factual, because...
It's opinion.
Yeah, well, obviously. But at the same time, they didn't...
And that's the beautiful thing about this. We can take opinion, but we're not going to state it as fact.
Well, and what was raw and unfiltered talent from previous albums was now very much polished and finished to be something people can like. I get that.
Which is kind of funny you bring up the Black Album, because... I just bought a record player, and I went scrounging at Walmart, which I would say you can't scrounge at Walmart, but at the same time, I've watched that Facebook post, The People of Walmart, and some of those people not only got out of the wrong side of the bed,
Go ahead.
I think they're still in bed. They just don't realize they're walking.
Yeah, so the fact that you're, like, creating an excavation site in the electronics section, like, that's not the weirdest thing they've experienced.
Right. And I actually pulled out the Black Album by Metallica, and I don't know if I'm one of the what do you call them, straight edge people?
I mean, I don't see how this related.
But I liked the Black Album. About 2/3 of the songs that were on it are ones I grew up listening to and do enjoy.
Well, fair enough. Again, back on to, like, we'll veer it back and go with the Star Wars. Like, back in the day, everyone thought that The Phantom Menace was, like, the most god-awful thing on the planet.
And then we got 2 and 3.
Yeah, so then it's like, oh crap, this is so much better. What were we thinking?
And, I really liked The Phantom Menace. We're not going to count 7, 8, and 9 in the series, because even Disney went back and went, okay, yeah, these movies are awful. We have canceled them. They are no longer canon. That's great. Can we destroy all copies of it like they tried to do with the Christmas special?
Oh, yeah, you're talking about, like, The Force Awakens and stuff like that. I like The Force Awakens.
Yeah, the first one had so much potential. We're finally going to have... there was a black stormtrooper.
Yeah.
We were going to have a stormtrooper that, as far as I am aware of, was the first one to leave the Empire and become a Jedi. That's amazing. Now, we've had dark Sith leave and rejoin the Jedi and vice versa.
Yeah,
but they were people who were already connected to the Force. But to have a normal person leave, realize the Empire was evil, and become a force to be reckoned with. There was so much potential in that. And honestly, I kind of thought Raya was her name. Raya. And the character, we're going to become a love interest. I know, that's old-fashioned thinking, but sorry, I'm a bit of a romantic.
Well, I don't know. I just didn't see any chemistry between them.
In the first movie, I saw the potential for something.
Yeah.
He really had some feelings for her. You could see it. And then you got Poe, which massive bromance between those two characters. I thought that was beautiful.
Yeah, that was great.
And there was potential there. But then just like in The Phantom Menace, which, let's face it, Duel of the Fates is one of the greatest pieces of music the Star Wars series has ever seen. Definitely. And the world large, it's amazing.
And that's kind of saying something. Like, on a side note, again, musician, I'm the music guy. The soundtrack was amazing. The soundtrack probably kept me through the series, honestly. So, for something to be the best Star Wars song, that's incredible.
But, they had so much potential. Because Star Wars isn't labeled as a action movie. No. It's actually labeled as a space drama. And if I had known that before I started watching Star Wars, I probably never would have gotten into it.
Yeah.
Because most drama, I'm sorry, there's enough drama in life I can do without it.
Well, here's another thing that I've constantly heard it described as science fantasy instead of science fiction.
And I can see that.
Yeah, because it's not like... Star Trek's a classic sci-fi example. It's like we're traveling to space as, like, this team going to unknown planets and stuff and figuring out and researching. No, like, they're in different planets. They've researched all the things. But at the same time, there's definitely a very fantasy feel to it. There's wizards, swordplay. I guess technically dwarves, you could probably call Wookiees very akin to dwarves.
Yeah, I could see it.
The big hairy guys that nobody actually listens to.
With great strength, they'll rip your arm off and beat you to death with it.
Yeah, totally.
Oh yeah, in case you can't tell, we're also D&D nerds. Because why not?
Yeah, we're pretty dweebish.
They had a lot of potential, and then we got into the Clone Wars, and it stopped being a space drama and really did become more of an action movie.
Which, by the way, did you ever watch the cartoon, The Clone Wars?
I started to. I think I got about 10 episodes into it, and it's not that it was bad. It was good. I think a lot of it is like there's like The Office. Everyone tells me if you can get through the first season, The Office is wonderful. Just, the first few episodes, they're working things out, they're trying to figure out how to do it. And I have a hard time with that, because I can't sit still and watch something that's cringeworthy. I can't stand cringe. I can deal with horror, I can deal with comedy, I can deal with slapstick. Cannot stand cringe.
That was kind of one of the cool things about my personal favorite sitcom of recent memory, BoJack Horseman.
Yeah, you've talked a lot about that.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. Because it really ropes you in by being silly and zany within the first couple of episodes. You're really having a lot of fun. And then it slowly becomes, BoJack's battle with alcoholism. And, then you're by that point you've already if you get that far, you're already interested and invested in the characters, and now you're suddenly concerned. I think that handled it a lot better than it takes a couple seasons to really get into it, you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, one of my favorite shows of all time had to have been Parks and Recreation. It introduced...
Oh, that was good.
Oh, it was.
I've only seen the first couple episodes, by the way.
Well, Andy Dwyer, which they might know him better as Chris Pratt, went on to do amazing things. He's hilarious. He got Star-Lord and in the Jurassic World movies, and he was wonderful.
Yeah,
and
he is a funny dude.
He is. And in Parks and Rec, what people don't realize is he was an average person, He took his shirt off in the show because he was a goofball, and I loved him. He was, he was my favorite character in the whole show. He was an average, a dad bod. And you'll actually notice later on in the series, toward the last 2 seasons, he will not take his clothes off anymore, which used to be a semi-normal thing, but he refused to do it because he actually started working out. And do you know why?
Well, so he could get the role of Star-Lord, right?
Actually, what ended up happening was he actually auditioned for the lead of the G.I. Joe movie.
And he couldn't do it because, he's got the beer gut.
Yeah, he started to work out a little bit by then, but they told him, "Hey, you're just not the body type we're looking for. You're not what we want." And he said his self-esteem took a big hit. So he started working out. And this was at least a year or 2 before he tried out for Star-Lord. And he even said in an interview, "Hey, when I found out that they were going to do Star-Lord, I'm a big comic books fan. Big surprise, I know, considering how funny he is. Not a surprise at all."
Fair enough.
And he was worried that he was just going to humiliate himself again. And people actually had to talk him in to doing this. And he's like, "You know what? At the end of the day, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to read for this part, and all they can do is tell me no." And he got it, and it was this huge boost. He proved to be hilarious, and not every role he does is serious. Do you remember him in, what was that movie, The Wonderful Six? With the gunman in the Wild West?
Oh, crap. The Ridiculous Six.
No. The Ridiculous Six had Adam Sandler in it.
Well, it had a lot of things. By the way, I hate the fact I love that movie.
It's funny. I'll give you that.
Everything about it is wonderful. The cinematography is great. The costumes are beautiful. The lighting is good. I can talk about how good the lighting is. It's that good.
But it has Adam Sandler in it.
But it's an Adam Sandler movie, so anytime anyone opens their mouth, it's just, oh, God.
I mean, I like a couple of Adam Sandler. I loved Little Nicky.
Yeah, Little Nicky was fun. Adam Sandler has a problem. Well, I have a problem with Adam Sandler, I think is a better way to put it. I laugh at his jokes, but then I feel bad because I laughed at it.
Kind of like laughing at a stereotype joke, "Oh, that's terrible," and I laughed. I'm going to hell for this, but I'm going to laugh along the way. Apparently.
Yeah, but it's not because it's racist. It's just because I know I've written humor. I've read humor. This is not supposed to be funny. I hate the fact I'm laughing at it.
You can't always pick what you love and what you don't love. And apparently you love crappy jokes.
Yeah, I guess I'm just a big old Adam Sandler fan.
Well, hey, just think, it could be worse. You could be a guy who likes puns, and then nobody would like you. Because there are people who like puns out there. and nobody should like them. They should feel terrible.
Yeah, that is the one thing. We're actually getting to the point where like pretty much dad aged, even though neither of us have kids. And I notice we tend to like make some dad jokes here and there.
Hi, hungry. I'm Dad. What?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it's not that bad, but it's pretty bad.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. I think you see what we're trying to do here. Just a couple of good old boys having some fun, giving opinions out there on the world on just everyday things, things that are big, things that are small, that are important to a lot of people or important to none.
Maybe just important to me.
I'm okay with that. This is
Yeah.
our podcast. We can talk about whatever we want to.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe it's just something that's important to us, and like nobody else cares.
Well, you know what? You're listening to our podcast, so now you have to hear it too.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been Andrew.
And I'm still Patrick.
This is Alleyway Conversations, and if you would like to help us in the future, we do have a Patreon, which I did end up spelling Patron over and over again before I realized there was an E in there.
Yeah, I was looking at you like doing all the like technical work. He's our tech guy. He does everything. But
Not
I was
well.
like, dude, are we getting rum? Sweet.
Unfortunately, no. I'm just terrible at spelling. My second grade teacher knew I would suck at that. I bet she's laughing. Hopefully in her grave. She was not a nice person.
Fair enough.
So
Lots of teachers aren't, but that's something we'll save for another episode. Probably, maybe.
we'll see what the future holds.
Yeah.
So, anyway, yeah, you can look us up on Alleyway Conversations on patreon.com. We have a couple of tiers we're looking at. We don't have any merchandise because we have no idea how to do that. Send us a link if you
Yeah.
know how.
We're working on things. It's a step-by-step process.
So, all right, I hope you're looking forward to episode 1, and I hope to have it up in a week or two. It's going to take some work, but we're working through it. So,
Yeah.
have a good night, everybody, and we hope to see you next time.